Israel is my favorite country. Ever since I was about 6 years old, you would recognize I was keen on Israel.
And what intrigues you so much about Israel?
Right now, I am just amazed that they have rejected the Messiah and they have seen him. And the worst part of it is, it's not only Israel that has rejected, but even our country, as far as I can see.
Persons who know Petra and have spent time interacting with her describes her as an exceptional all-rounder who can hold a conversation with just about anyone on any subject.
Do you agree with the democratic system?
Well, I'm okay with democratic, but monarchies, because you have two types of monarchies. One is constitutional, other absolute. And absolute is ridiculously horrible. Because in the constitutional monarchy, here's what happens. The king will give the powers to the people. That means the king is left with the ceremonial powers. But in the absolute, all you have is the power rests with the king, nobles, and clergy. Well, if you're talking in the French case, what caused the French Revolution? In the absolute monarchy, if you're not talking France, it just rests with the king or other monarch. Seriously, bad idea.
How would you categorize her special abilities?
She's absolutely gifted. From the first day I met her, I refer to her as a gifted child. She's exceptional because...
Shermy James Dasherville is one of Petra's teachers at a public school in Vieux-Fort, St. Lucia, at which Petra is currently a 4th grader.
And how is she performing amongst the students, her peers?
Well, she's an excellent student. Last term she got 99 point something percent. She's excellent.
I have been blown away by what she has been able to do academically. But the issue is that when she performs academically well, you get a sense of her ability. So throughout Petra's academics, Petra has displayed something that I did not display as a student. That is a very rare discipline.
Most of the time I place either first or second because I have some issues in other areas like mathematics and drawing of bar graphs and pictographs. Okay. If you ask my classmates, every time in class my teacher has to help me draw the bar graphs or pictographs.
Okay.
X, Y axis, measurement of centimeters. Woo-wee, I need help.
And that's where teacher Dasherville comes in, a trained special education teacher with more than 10 years' experience working with children with special needs. Petra celebrated her 10th birthday since we spoke with her, but although she's gifted with exceptional abilities to retain and analyze information well beyond her years, she is also a special needs child who requires one-on-one attention for specific tasks and developmental goals.
I have a special teacher at school that comes to help me in fine motor and gross motor areas because I'm weak on those areas. Measurement is one of the fine motor skills. I don't know how to do that yet. Putting on my shoes correctly is the same problem I have right now. Running is another thing. I can run very fast, but not as fast as the rest of my class.
When I first started working with Petra in kindergarten, for example, she couldn't write. She wasn't able to hold the pencil, even with the correct grasp for her to be able to write. And so even if she was excellent orally and otherwise, she had that difficulty with fine motor. Even now, she has difficulty cutting with a pair of scissors.
In the gross motor, I can't seem to tell which is left and which is right in terms of shoes. Most of the time, my parents have to tell me to put them on correctly. Other times, I just learn that because oftentimes I just trip over a rock and then I find out my shoes were not put on correctly.
And how does that make you feel?
Irritated. And another thing is I can't even tie shoelaces yet.
Most persons will have no idea that she has this tube going down her head. And this tube is what's keeping her alive.
Petra was born with hydrocephalus, a condition that occurs when fluid builds up in the skull and causes the brain to swell. It is a condition which her mother, a medical doctor by profession, discovered during her 31st week of pregnancy, and for which Petra had her first surgery when she was just 27 days old.
And the ultrasound I saw that her head was very large and the ventricles in her brain were dilated. And I realized, wow, this child has a hydrocephaly, congenital hydrocephaly, which is an abnormality in the brain there. The fluid weren't draining properly because one particular ventricle wasn't functioning the way it was supposed to function.
Petra has never attended a special education school and benefits from her attendance at a regular primary school with supplemental one-on-one attention from her itinerant teacher, who is attached to the government's special education center but works with Petra at the regular mainstream school she attends.
And where do you keep all this information? Because you told me your brain shrunk at some point when you were a baby. So
it was shrinking, but my brain has grown back ever since the surgery.
I see.
But my brain can easily keep a lot of information.
So that's where you store all that information?
Yes.
And how do you decide which information to use when?
Well, that all depends on my level of discernment. So I can choose which information in my head. So I store mainly my information in my right hemisphere instead of my left, because the left one is mainly used for artistic abilities.
Petra's mother, Dr. Robinson, explained that Petra's early brain surgery made the difference between life and death. And though the surgery had been performed at the right time, the prognosis, she says, was quite bleak.
By the time I came out of the womb, my head was about the size of a bowling ball.
And how did you know all of this? Your parents told you?
Well, my parents didn't tell me about the size of my head, but I saw a picture of me as a baby when I had the condition, and my head looked like the size of a bowling ball, a literal bowling ball. Thus meaning my external organs, including my eyes, nose, and mouth, and my internal organs, that's my brain, were starting to shrink. And my parents knew if they shrunk anymore, I would die, especially if the brain shrinks, because the brain is the part that controls everything.
Were you ever concerned about the quality of life and the level of independence that she would have?
Yes, I was.